We're all getting stung. Okay, stand next to me. And hit me too. So let's be in order. Thank you folks for being here. Are there any announcements? Do we have any announcements electronically?
Mr. President, Vice President Bureau and Attorney Torseth are online.
Okay. Hi, Susanna.
Hi, Ed.
Thank you. Either it's a delay or she was just getting to her microphone. Thank you for attending. I think it's looking good, but we like the backup. Okay. With nothing being heard, I want to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
This, Mr.
Oh,
President,
yes, sir.
we have a couple of revisions for you to consider.
Oh, these, oh, we're gonna add these to the agenda, that's right. Okay. Put them under, let's see. Put this one under managers. Is that good enough? Yeah. Put them both under managers. Easy enough? Okay.
And
Yes, sir.
Would also like to remove C from the consent calendar if we could. We have a little bit more information we're working with on that permit applicant.
Very good,
Trying to
sir.
pull that
Okay.
one. Or remove it essentially.
Okay. So that one's not squared away. Okay.
So that'll be off the agenda altogether.
Off of the agenda.
Thank you.
All right, so now I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Aye.
You're welcome.
Aye.
Okay.
Just a question. I think the last time we did this, didn't Susanna say we had to do a roll call?
Roll.
Roll call. Do we have to do that?
Yes.
yes,
Thank you, Susanna.
Trying to keep us straight.
Yeah. Okay. So straighten me out on that one because I forget things. Okay. Public forums. Anybody wishing to speak? Don't have anything at this time. We're gonna get to you gentlemen shortly when your issue comes up. We're gonna move it to the consent calendar. I want to pull for a trifling reason, the draft meeting notes, minutes, and move to approve item B on the consent calendar. Do I have a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded.
Aye.
Aye.
We doing it right? Like we're supposed to? Okay.
Please say your
We gotta say our name.
You have to-
and then
Mr. Bill.
our vote.
Manager Armstrong, aye.
John,
Aye. Manager Pereira, aye.
Manager Marchand, aye.
John Brown, aye.
Rick Geldman, aye.
Okay, it's approved. So let's go to the draft meeting minutes. This one is, there's nothing here except that on page 3, on line 12, I have 225. So that's way in the future.
it is.
Okay, so that's all I have. Motion to approve the draft meeting minutes for March 13th. Do I have a second?
Second?
So moved and seconded.
Manager Armstrong, aye.
Pereira, aye.
Manager Marchand, aye.
John Brown, aye.
Geldman, aye.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. That is approved. We can move on. So, dates and requests from partners, volunteers, and citizens advisory committee. Nothing at this time. Let's move on. Okay, business and reports, administrator, engineer, permit. 2025-07, Amthor Residential Landscape, Lake Elmo. John, please lead us into this.
President, Engineer Phillips.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, sir. Go ahead, Josh.
Manager, included in your packet is an updated memo, since this was last at the board a month ago. I provided an introductory, paragraph just summarizing what's changed since the last time, that this, permit was before you. Myself and a few others at, BAR have been coordinating with, Ben Amthor, who's in the audience here, as well as his consultant for the landscaping plan here. We've worked through a couple of different iterations of revisions to their plans for providing a temporary flood barrier in lieu of that more permanent flood wall that was in place. And with them proposing a temporary replacement of that flood wall, made the determination that a variance application is no longer needed at this time. So we are generally recommending approval of this permit with a few conditions noted in the memo.
Is Mr. Amthor aware of the conditions?
I provided the memo to him and to his consultants earlier this week, I think on Monday or Tuesday. We haven't talked about it specifically, but I've provided those to you.
The only question I have, regarding the sump. And I would like to, it's basically I use like the portable pool sumps all the time, that they work like for an auto cover for a pool. Or my thought process, since the barrier is temporary, I would like to be able to utilize the same thing for the leakage that you had addressed, so that I would have an indentation. You know, the whole goal here is to have something that will function in a flood, but you had questioned on the leakage portion, so I don't think we specifically went into the sump detail, but our intent would be to provide a portable sump pump that just sets in place. If there's leakage, if water sensitive, it turns on, it pumps over the wall and throws out. I just wanted to make sure that I was on the right path with that, and if everything else is spelled out very clearly. And I understand that I will have to purchase the temporary flood wall, set it up, display that it is in place and functioning, and I have a shed on the property where my intent would be just to store it in the shed, and if we need it, what's up?
Or maybe you'll let me borrow it so I can put a pool in my backyard.
We'll rent it to you for a lot of money for the temporary wall, so I'll give you a great deal.
No breaks, no breaks. Conflict of interest. Well, with that said, sir, I'd like to thank you for your patience and the hard work you put into making this right and working with us to do what we do to help our constituency and to prevent flooding, following our rules and regs, and also Josh, for your efforts. That was very thorough of you. And we, so I can speak for the managers, sincerely appreciate that. So I feel real good about this, and in my opinion, it appears to have been solved. With that said, do the managers have anything that they would like to add, or any questions they might have? Say it. That's from a movie.
I'd just like to commend Mr. Amthor too for coming up with a really creative solution to a somewhat vexing problem, so.
Was that Jody that did that, Miss Jody?
Yeah, we both spent ridiculous amounts of time. I had one solution, mine wasn't as good as Jody's. Jody found the more expensive option. I do agree, it's a better option. So that's the path we'll take.
Ms. Barrera, do you have anything?
Well, no, I know that this was a really sticky one, so it's great to hear that, thanks to the property owners and innovative thinking and cooperation, that it looks like we're getting to a solution. So, and I just chuckled at the landscaper's company's name, Wits End Landscaping, because I figured we'd all be at our wits end trying to figure this one out.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. His last name is Witt, so hence the name. It's a pretty good name.
Okay,
Ned, yeah, sorry, okay. Just kidding. Sorry, John, I'm behaving. Would, any of the managers, like to make a motion?
I'll
I
make
I would make the motion to approve 2025-07.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded.
Manager Armstrong, aye.
Manager Pereira, aye.
Manager Marchand, aye.
John Brock, aye.
Manager Geldman, aye.
It is approved. Thank you, sir.
One
Thank you.
comment, one comment I'd like to make.
Yes, sir, please.
This was a very interesting project and with a, a real good solution, I thought. And, with Mr. Amthor's, possible agreement, it'd be nice for the managers to include it on part of a manager's tour, if that's something that would be workable and acceptable.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Cocktails.
They may be present if you choose to partake.
So it's tax season, I get stupid.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
very good, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You may,
You're welcome to stick around, or you can head out if you'd like.
I'll jump out. I have a couple grandkids. I need to read bedtime stories too.
thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Have a beautiful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you, managers, and Josh, thank you once again. So it's nice to square away things like that. Let's move on to our next item, and that will be the $10,000 community grant for the Woodfield Prairie and Veterans Park, Lakes and Croy Beach. Sir, you're up.
Yes, Mr. President, managers, thank you for having me. My name is Brett Stolstead. I'm with the Washington Conservation District. I'm a landscape restoration specialist and work closely with Alyssa Thompson, who I'm sure you know. And if I may, I'm just going to pass around a printout of the presentation behind you, just so you don't have to crane your neck. And I also have the maps, which I believe you may have seen in the previous submission, but just in case, I'll come back around with the maps.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I had an extra copy hiding somewhere.
Can't like read.
All right. So again, my name is Brett Solstead with the Washington Conservation District. I've been working closely with Mayor Tom McCarthy and Richard Throne of the Lower St. Croix Valley Veterans Group.
Richard Throne
Yes, that's right.
of,
The
Mansilla Well.
Yep, exactly, yeah. Sounds like he's retiring soon, but yes,
Yes.
one and the same, yeah. We've been assisting them with a proposal and guidance on the restoration of a 1 acre prairie adjacent to the Veterans Memorial between the memorial and Lake St. Croix Beach City Hall, which was previously owned by Jan Woodfill for a number of years. It's never been developed, has been mown annually for a substantial period of time. And it's dominated primarily by non-native cool season grasses at the moment, but during a site visit last spring, we noticed quite a few species, remnant prairie species, that we believe we have a good chance of restoring and increasing on this parcel through adaptive management over the next several years, including prescribed burns in consecutive years, mowing annually in the first 2 years, interseeding, and possibly some planting. And the Veterans Group, they're really excited about this opportunity. Last fall, they constructed a sign just between the trail and the prairie, which was that first photo in your packet there, in honor of the previous landowner, Jan Woodfill, and they're excited to restore this parcel and really make it a draw point and an asset that complements the Veteran Memorial and make it a destination for other community members. in Lake St. Croix Beach. And so the ask is that the district encourage and promote this project through the community grant program in the amount of $10,000 for management activities over the next 2 years, which will include prescribed fire, mowing by a contractor, interseeding and purchase of native seed and material.
You, gentlemen, have any questions? I've got, just some, yes, sir.
One question I'm just curious about, so you're not going to do the typical thing where you go in and just kill everything off, and you're gonna, you got the non-native cool season grasses, you're gonna try somehow to eradicate those? I'm just curious, because I think that's great that you
Yeah.
can do that, if that's possible.
I think in this scenario, since there are native species that are present and perhaps remnant to the site, that through prescribed burning and mowing, we'll be able to start to turn the clock a bit and mimic what Washington County Parks has done in their right of ways actually adjacent to this site, where they've started to reintroduce fire in some of those right of way areas and have seen really great success, or it's trending in the right direction. Those non-native cool season grasses are being suppressed, and we're seeing more and more richness and diversity in some of those right of way areas. And I think it's reasonable to expect that we might see similar results. And, this is partially an adaptive management approach. We may need to change our approach in year 2, depending on what we see this spring after a prescribed burn and a mowing or 2. But we're confident that we'll be able to see some good results.
Any other managers?
Yes.
Please, Rick.
Thank you. Can you point out where the Middle St. Croix Valley Regional Trail will be?
Yes, that was that was one graphic that I forgot to insert in this presentation. I'd be happy to pull more of that information together and show you. But the new alignment is, so the pedestrian trail currently passes directly through and adjacent to the Veterans Memorial. The new alignment does take the regional trail a bit further west. And so this would be, it would still be connected more or less as a spur trail, but it's not a part of that new proposed alignment. And unfortunately, I don't know that precise distance, but would be happy to pull some of that information.
So it's running parallel to the trail that is obviously there?
Yeah, the current Afton and Lakeland pedestrian trail runs parallel to 95 between the 95 and the Veterans Memorial.
Okay. I guess I'm still not real clear on, where this other trail is.
Yeah, I apologize for not.
Able to.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll try to pull some of that information together, but unfortunately, that was one graphic I missed in this.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess the other question for me, I'm surprised at the cost on that.
Yeah.
And I see you've got a graph in our or the report that was done by Washington Conservation on page 7, and it lists out different management efforts going from none up to high, and this one's at the high level. Can you talk some about what the differences are between a high level response and the medium, say, or the low? Some of what I was hearing, in John's question, was that, oh, indeed, it's a different approach, and that, that you're taking a little more care to use the plants that are there. But let me have you explain it.
Yeah, so the low approach, so to speak, it would essentially be a continuation of the management that's been done on this site for many years, which is a annual mowing towards the end of the year, which in some ways I think is at least partially responsible for sustaining some of those native species that are still present on site. But they are still being outcompeted by smooth brome and other non-native cool season grasses. And I think to really suppress those species and encourage some of the warm season prairie grasses and forbs, prescribed fire is one of the best tools to do that. And given the state that the field is in currently, I think burning in consecutive years is we're going to get more benefit that way and start to move the site in the right direction. And so that adds to the cost when you're burning in years 1 and 2. That cost can range on the site of this size anywhere between $1,200, $2,000. Mowing by a contractor and visits each year, at least 2 or 3, to manage noxious weed species on the site. Also adds costs in both years 1 and 2. And the seed mix for this site, I think we want to carefully think about the species that will be in that mix and their rates, which will likely result in a more expensive seed mix in year 2 if interseeding. And so these pieces together do push the cost up a bit on a per acre basis, but I think it's worth the investment, and I think it's necessary to achieve the results that we'd like to achieve with this particular site.
Okay. What happens long-term on this? How does it get financed long-term? I got the impression that really what we're talking about, the proposal here is what, a 2-year type of covering the cost for 2 years. What happens after that?
Well, we continue to work with the veterans group in the city to shift maintenance responsibilities or find ways that they can share some of the maintenance responsibilities with a contractor, use some of their internal budget to continue some of those maintenance activities that they can't do themselves, but work with them to implement some of the pieces that are identified and highlighted in those plans, the maintenance activities, and find a strategy for the group to take on some of those activities themselves. I think it's reasonable to, I think they will have capacity with help from the WCD to start to think about annual mowing, annual weed pulling events to control spotted knapweed and things, other noxious weed species that they can control on their own. It's going to be, we'll need to think through that process going forward, judging from the condition of the site after year 2. But those first 2 years are certainly the heaviest lift. And our hope is that once we get to the end of year 2, we start to develop a long-term maintenance protocol with the group that will be able to shift some of those responsibilities to the veterans group.
These gentlemen have more questions.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Sure.
anyway, have you approached the city about financing from the city at this point?
Thank you.
Not at this point. It may be something they would be interested in if they have time to budget for it. Both Mayor Tom McCarthy and Administrator Dave Engstrom have been involved in working with the veterans group, both at the memorial and coming up with this plan. So I think that's certainly something they'd be excited and interested in.
I definitely support the project. It's just kind of a bang for your buck sort of thing. When you're talking about a 1 acre parcel
Yeah.
and $10,000 up front, we're not totally sure at this point, and or $11,000 and 10 is coming from us. Just wondering if we could, have a partnership with the city in there or something that
Yeah.
Sort of offset the burden.
Yeah, I think that's, it wasn't in their budget this past year. But I think it's something that we can have discussions with the city going forward to see if there's a way that we can build in some of that ongoing maintenance budget and work with them to develop educational materials to really kind of interpret what's happening at the site and promote the benefits of this project in the hopes that residents will become interested and want to implement something similar on their own property.
Mr. Brock,
Yeah, I just had a question on the prescribed burn costs. Are those, I mean, it's just about half the budget is the 2 prescribed burns. I mean, I just for 1 acre. I know it's an urban setting, but there's nothing close by that looks like it'd be in imminent danger or anything. Are those typical prescribed burn costs? I mean, it just seems crazy high to me.
Yeah, well, that is fairly typical, and there is an economy of scale as you do larger and larger burns, but the cost of personnel and hours and obtaining burn permits, that is fairly typical of a prescribed burn of this size or a similar size.
let me interject on that question. Prescribed burns. I know the DNR does these things. Is this something that the DNR can do, or are you suggesting that they're going to be responsible for it and you want us to pay for it? What's happening?
The DNR is responsible for permitting the prescribed burn.
Okay.
They would likely not be willing to burn on private property.
Okay,
And we did reach out to Washington County Parks, who had burned the right of way just north of this site, to see if, there's a way to work with them going forward on prescribed burn protocol. They were unable to do so because parcel's not owned by Washington County, so they were not able to.
okay,
No.
you answered that. Thank you. Do gentlemen have any other questions? Because I certainly have some questions and commentary. Mr. Pereira,
Yes, sir.
anything that has come to your attention?
No, I'm just a little confused. How does this one compare to the one we just saw either last meeting or the meeting before that? Isn't it the same spot?
Right, yes.
That's it, right?
Okay, so what's different now?
Well, I'm hoping I came to help describe the project in a bit more detail, hopefully, and answer questions by managers about the project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, here I go. Elucidate what we were asking in the first place. Okay, the problems that I believe we have, I certainly have, is number one, it's in an upland. Number two, is it prairie? Does it ultimately become woodland? Is that the ultimate goal? To me, and I don't mean to sound so ignorant because I'm far from an expert on any of this stuff, that ultimately deciduous trees take over, Minnesota natives. And to me, it seems that they are much less maintenance than what these people have that want to do. Okay. There's more. Also, what I'm trying to do is give this particular project a justification for $10,000. Again, as our other managers have pointed out, the concern for the money and bang for our buck and some sort of recognition. I'll be very clear with you on that. I don't necessarily want you to, if we go for this, to write our name right next to Woodfill or something, but we would certainly like some sort of recognition because that's important to us for educational reasons and other reasons that we want this done, that we want to be a part of this because it's taxpayer money. I'll try not to push that mantra on you. One thing I do like is that looking at this, of course, and everybody has seen this particular corridor, it looks like it's all wild. Am I correct? Or is it interlaced with homes? Or in other words, this looks like a sliver, a patch that can be kept wild, that can be maintained, I hope. And this is just part of that. This to me is appealing because it allows for habitat, et cetera, et cetera. I don't need to get into, the insects and everything that we need, to grace this area. And more. The other concern that I have is, as Rick pointed out, the long-term maintenance of this property. Who's gonna mow it? Who's gonna pay for it? Do we need to mow it?
Yeah.
Is it gonna be wild? Are we gonna have tall grasses there? Because we know that Minnesota prairie does not look like what we see in these places. And the concern for erosion, preventing erosion, and dealing with phosphorus, because that was my first, the red flags came up right away because we want to attack that always. There's no phosphorus removal that I'm aware of, but I do know that that needs to capture water and it needs to provide habitat. The expensive part, of course, the burning. I know, because I know some landscapers, you go in with glyphosate or something, that's just defeating the purpose of all this stuff. We know what that's been doing. It's apparently a carcinogen. For all it's worth, it's a danger. It's a danger to the community, and burning stuff down. I like burning stuff. But I don't like to get in trouble with the. But that's something that needs to be done. I get it. So you try to piece this together. So we go for this 2 years, and you're concerned about the native plant mixture. You're way ahead of me on this because to me, it seems that plants are plants. You go outside and okay, that's what's growing. And in other words, nature favors the strong, so to speak, without getting into this stuff. After 2 years, what happens? Who mows and who pays for it? And do we need to mow? Or is it going to be left alone?
After 2 years, it's likely that at least an annual, once annual mowing would be needed in the fall of the third year, to suppress the non-native cool season grasses. And we would need to negotiate, a plan moving forward with the city and the veterans group to decide, who is going to perform that mowing and who is going to be paying for that mowing.
So it's gonna, if I'm not interrupting you, it's gonna come out of somebody's pocket. The veterans, I'm all for veterans projects. It's important, I think, but also the city of Afton, an added burden. And the concern that they're gonna say, hey, well, you guys were generous and now we want you to maintain that piece of grass. And what about the rest of it? Okay. So that's the one issue I have. And again, going back to the long-term concern, is it going to turn into woodland? Is it part of the path? In other words, is this something that everybody is going to benefit from? You know what I mean? A wild place, the path running along it and undisturbed, so to speak. What about the maintenance? One more time. What's going to happen? You don't know. Or you do?
It's not, the long-term maintenance responsibilities have not been established at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir.
Brett, is this an urgent request? Would it be feasible to go back to the city and the veterans and
Right.
maybe
That's
develop
right.
some sort of MOU on long-term responsibilities? So I sense a fear from the managers or hesitation from the managers in funding something that after 2 years might not be successful.
Yes, sir. That's exactly where I was going.
I can appreciate that,
Right.
certainly. And the only urgency may be that if the window for prescribed burn in this year is here and may end soon. And we would love to, develop those long-term maintenance responsibilities with the city and the veterans group. I completely understand and appreciate that request.
Okay. Yep. Forgive me, sir. Mr. Engineer.
Vice President Pereira has raised his hand.
Vice President Pereira, please talk to us.
Excuse me. My understanding, so this is kind of like, my view on this, and maybe it's not correct. This is kind of like a chunk of oak savanna without any oak trees on it, which is a pretty common pre-settlement land cover type in the eastern part of the metro. And my semi-educated mind thought that burning such habitat once every 3 years was sufficient to maintain it in its natural state. Is that correct?
Yeah, every 3 to 6 years or so. So that would be the best case scenario, that we are able to move the site to a state after year 2 that cyclical burning on that 3 to 6 year cycle would be sufficient to sustain the prairie long term. However, given its current condition, I think we can reasonably expect that we're still going to have some level of cool season grass pressure after that second year. And so some combination of mowing may also be needed in the short term, in the next few years after the initial 1 or 2 years after the first initial years of restoration. It's a bit hard to predict. We would implement some level of monitoring of the site and precise estimates of the starting cover of those cool season grasses and how they're declining over time. So it can help us inform some of those management actions moving forward. But that would be the best case scenario, that long term we can get the site to a condition where that periodic burning is sufficient. With the exception of some noxious weed control for species that may have germinated or blown into the site.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with that said, now you're talking the 3rd or 4th year, another burn. Okay, so I'm concerned about that. Again, this is nothing on you. Don't take anything personally, but we have to protect our resources, and we're trying to be as efficient or as good as we can with how we spend money to do that. So
seems like we need, substantial and committed partners in this process.
yes, sir. So
Yeah.
if I could ask, perhaps a consideration would be to contact the city or other partners and provide us with more. I know you've already done a lot of work, and I know what this stuff is like. That you get more information about the long-term goals and how we're going to manage 1 acre. We want you guys, if that's possible, to manage that entire purple strip you have here, because I think that's going to benefit everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's something that Washington County Parks is actively engaged in and really motivated to work on over the next.
Have you talked to them about this particular patch and burning it?
We did reach out to Parks to see if that's something they would be interested in doing, but they weren't able to. They weren't able to burn outside of Washington County property or road right away.
Okay.
But we did get input from Dan McSwain from Parks on the management plan. And he's really interested and engaged with what we're doing with this parcel. And both the vets group and the city are really motivated to work on this project. But I know there's more detail needed and just deciding roles and responsibilities moving forward after those first couple of years of restoration.
In my opinion, that's the crux, that's the key. And pending whether the managers agree with me or not, we're going to determine this, that we need to go back to the drawing board and get more information, bring something more concrete. This is my opinion about how we're going to manage this piece of property, and hopefully for considerably less than $10,000. I'll mow it for you for nothing.
Yeah.
I got a nice mower, whatever. So that's a consideration. The other one that I'm concerned about is we apparently have a timetable or a window regarding the prescribed burn. Do you know how much time that is? Where does that go to?
That's a good question. It's highly variable from year to year. I know Parks has been, they were out burning earlier this week. We're expecting snow and rain over the next few days.
So it's already happening.
Right, yes, yeah, and how long the season will go is hard to know precisely, but you know, once that site greens up, and there's a lot of live green vegetation, it's gonna be really, really difficult to run a fire through it, and so at that
I
point,
get
you know,
that.
that could be within the next several weeks. So it's a little bit hard to predict, but, yeah, the prescribed burn window for this year is, it's here and it may close soon, it's, uncertain to say for sure when it may leave us, but so we may need to push the first prescribed burn to next season if we miss this year.
That may not be such a bad thing.
Yeah, I think I think either way, a prescribed burn would be hugely beneficial.
Right, I don't doubt that. I'm just saying that if you miss this window, okay, you can go back to managing what's coming up and make determinations and possibly mow something if need be. You guys aren't planning on planting any trees anyway, right?
No.
Not at this
No.
point.
Yeah.
Okay.
We focus on mowing this year and noxious weed management. Spotted knapweed is probably the biggest offender on the site currently. And we did have Conservation Corps help us with some pulling and management of
Right.
that species last year. We do occasionally have Conservation Corps crews that help us with projects. We apply through the Clean Water Fund grant program to help us with projects. That would be another option, potentially moving forward, as another way to help assist the veterans group in the city.
Okay. Did you have something, sir? Please.
I did, I think this was a really good discussion, but I really do think it's critically important that we have some sort of memorandum of agreement or something with whoever is going to be responsible for long-term maintenance so that they understand what they're signing on to. Because otherwise, if we do this without that, and we put $10,000 into it, they might say, well, we didn't understand we're gonna have to do that. It's gonna cost us this much money. And so the whole thing just goes back to what it is now.
Yeah,
I'd hate to see that.
yeah, right. Yeah, and part of the goal of the management plan was to really spell out what those long-term maintenance activities are. I guess what's missing from the plan is the cost of those activities and, you know, who's gonna be responsible for those.
Who's gonna be responsible is huge.
Yeah, and I'm confident that's something that,
And as ignorant as this may sound, what's keeping somebody from tilling it? And then reintroducing, you know, how much does something like that cost? And introducing native plant species.
Mhm.
You know, instead of this expensive prescribed burn. That's just a thought.
yeah. Well, I would strongly advise against tilling.
Okay.
And I think the prescribed burn is the best way to go in the first 2 years. Just minimal soil disturbance, I think is first and foremost. And avoiding herbicide application if at all possible.
Right.
And if it needs to be used, very targeted for specific species that can't be controlled without it. But so first and foremost is protecting the existing native vegetation that's there and promoting it through prescribed fire, avoiding tillage and herbicide application.
So this is a permit application, right? No, what is this? Plant grant, I'm sorry.
Community.
Yeah, community
Okay.
grant, yeah.
The reason I'm asking that is, the concern is if we decide not to do this and send you back to the drawing board, you know, how much time do we have? Or is this something that can be extended, in perpetuity. Do you know what I mean? What do we have? Is this a case where we have 60 days? No, not at all.
Mr. President, this is your program. You can decide whatever you'd like.
So I want to say that, and again, excuse my language, but go back to the drawing board and provide us with more information that would help us understand the long-term goals and effects of what we're doing
And commitment.
and commitment. And we don't want to get the taxpayer doesn't want to get a bill where somebody shows up and says, okay, we got to mow. What are you guys doing? You know? I thought you were gonna have native plants and as Manager Pereira pointed out, that it's essentially oak savanna. Was that what all this was before us humans came in and did what we did?
This particular area, yes, is
Yeah.
predominantly oak savanna and prairie.
Right.
Oak woodland.
You want to make it that, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Okay, so I'm gonna make a recommendation, not saying anything beyond this at this point, that we do that, and I'm asking you, of course, to provide us with further information so that we have a better feel of what we're going to spend money on and how much of that money we're going to spend. How does that strike you?
I think that's a very fair request. You know, I recognize that what's lacking in this application is really clearly defining who's going to be responsible for maintenance long-term, whether that's the city or the veterans group. Yeah, I think both entities will be, excited to develop that and come up with a plan that can be incorporated into the plan that you have in front of you. But I understand your position, and I
Yes,
think that adding those details and clarifying that is certainly worthwhile.
And I don't know what your workload is, but little homework, so to speak, you
Yeah.
can get on and go
Right.
rattle some cages or something, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I apologize for, missing
need.
this application. But it's great feedback, and so it's something
You're doing your part, and that's why we're all here. Again, as I've said before to others over other issues, we're trying to come up with solutions because we're trying to make a better environment. We're trying to protect our resources. I don't want to sound silly, but if we do this, it's going to benefit all of us. So I don't know how the managers feel about this or what we need to do at this point. I don't know if we need to table this, what the protocol is here. Help me. What we,
Mr. President,
Yes.
it actually was tabled at the last meeting. so
I
we
understand.
Probably should have removed it from the table before the discussion, but
okay,
I'm not a Robert's Rule order person.
That's technically what should have been done.
Ms. Tori, help us.
Well, so this is not a 60-day issue.
No,
I think you can table it again. I think just to be an abundance of clarity, I think you should take it off the table. You discuss it today and then table it again for the next meeting, or do you want another month?
you're willing to go through this. I don't mind if the managers are okay with it. I don't know about our workload. In other words, the meeting agenda, the agenda load that we're going to have. But I'm all for that, what our attorney said.
Yeah, I think that's totally feasible and reasonable. I think we can pull some of that information together for next
Okay.
month.
Okay, so.
If you could make a motion to renew the motion to table.
Yes,
How does that sound?
I would like to make a motion to renew the motion to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's a moved and seconded.
Andrew Armstrong, aye.
Manager Pereira, aye.
Andrew Marchon, aye.
Andrew Brock, aye.
Manager Gilman, aye.
Okay. So. Are we okay? Do we need to make another? So there we have it.
Okay, Thank you for your time. Yeah,
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate this and we appreciate you working with us to, again, to get a solution to this one.
yeah, absolutely.
So you understand what we're looking at and what we're looking for.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
And feel free to keep those.
Oh, we will.
Yeah, okay, great. All right,
Yeah. Also, get us more information on that corridor.
yeah.
Because I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Dan McSwain with Parks to see if he
Please,
can
yeah.
send along more information on what they're planning long-term for those right away areas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This might be something that they handle exclusively. I don't know, but.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we want to do.
okay. Yeah.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
sir.
Yeah, thank you. And if I may,
Yes.
I may stick around for the next agenda item if that's okay, because I
Oh,
know
please do.
just in case there are questions I can help
The
answer.
only fear that I have is that we bore you. You don't want to.
No,
All right.
thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for talking to us about this.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we okay? All right. Make sure I got this right. 2024 annual water quality monitoring results and suggested 2025 water quality monitoring and other actions. Josh.
That's me.
Sure.
Managers included in the packet is the 2024 water quality report, summarizing the efforts from last year. We are not, we don't at this time have anyone here to present on this, but there's an executive summary at the beginning, and then all of the results are available for you if you're interested. Following the report, there is a memo with some recommendations for the 2025 monitoring, basically looking forward into this season. Yeah, I could answer potentially some questions if you have them. Otherwise, there's the requested manager actions in that memo that follows the report.
I cannot tell a lie. I went over it, not like I typically do. But it all seemed to play into what I suspected, that we appear to be having pretty good quality of, or water quality in our water basins, you know, the water bodies, that sort of thing. And just one quick note. Don, help me with this one. The American Brook lamprey. Was that, is that animal full grown?
Yeah, they're pretty small. It's one of our natives.
Yeah.
It's not parasitic. It's not parasitic. It's just a filter feeder. And they're kind of conservation status in some parts of the Great Lakes Basin. Meaning they're like some level of threatened and are endangered or whatever.
Okay. I don't know about you, but it made me happy to see that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, all this urbanization. Yeah.
They're not blood-sucking aliens like the invasive sea lamprey in the Great Lakes, which I've been working on this meeting all week here.
They're good at happening, right? Okay.
One question.
Yes,
All
sir. Go
right.
ahead.
I suspect this is something that, you know, if we had a presentation of this, it would be more appropriate for that, but I'd like to bring it up at least. It seems in going through the graphs, it looks like in general, water quality is improving, in second disc readings and chlorophyll and phosphorus levels. And the question that comes to mind is, what are we doing that's working? And to be able to talk a little bit about that, it seems like there's so many of them that kind of have that trend in the direction that we want to go. And to be able to highlight what is successful about that. Is it, something out of our control, like weather, or is it something that we're doing, or is it,
Good point.
we just a general improvement in the way we're managing phosphorus, or what it is to, even if it isn't, specific facts, but if it's even to the point of, well, it seems like this is what's happening there. I would find that very helpful in terms of, valuing what we do and how we go about doing it.
President Shannon and Treasurer Gilman, I think in some of that is mentioned in a few spots in some of the narrative here. I think in some cases, we have a little bit of a sense of why that's the case. I think in others, there's not a clear answer as to why certain water quality trends are showing up here. I know, I recall reading a portion of this report that just having some consistent precipitation totals over the last few years could be helping just by having some additional water within these water bodies. But yeah, I think it's a great point. And I think a presentation might be able to help answer some of those questions. I think in other cases, we don't have a particularly clear exact reason as to why that's the case, but you know, I think it's something that's why we're doing this monitoring and trying to identify those. So, and then also just looking at, is it a statistically significant trend or not? And so some of that is addressed in this as well. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point and a great question. I don't know that we know the answer in all cases, but.
Sure.
Vice President Pereira has his hand raised.
Mr. Pereira, please.
Well, I just think Rick's question is a very good one, but my hunch is that we'd have an awful lot of things to tease apart to figure out just what it is. And I mean, this watershed district has been spending significant amounts of money over the years trying to do things like erosion control and a whole variety of other things. So we better be seeing some trends in the right direction, right? That's a simple view of it, but I think it's still an important one, maybe.
Could be, it could be. I think you have a very valid point there. Yeah, we're doing something. We know that it's not getting worse at this point, and we have been spending the money, just to echo you.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
But there's also some trends that aren't good, like figure 15. Chlorides in Valley Creek.
Yes, sir. Just a question. Have we, got water quality monitoring, have we, been tracking land use, changes over time also? Because I just wonder if maybe some of this conversion from agricultural to residential, where we've got better control on it, but then the residential with, and the commercial developments, then we get the chloride. We're not getting the phosphorus necessarily, but we're getting,
Right.
I'm just grasping at straws, guessing. I'm just curious.
No, that's a
have
big
been
point.
tracking land use, or maybe I imagine there's some sort of a GIS based system that tells about that, but there's got to be some way that we could tell trends over time, as far as acres have maybe gone down, and how those are changing.
That's a very good question. I don't know how we incorporate that, but the fact remains that there's increased urbanization, and how is it affecting our water bodies and water quality?
Right. And that kind of a discussion, I think, is helpful, whether it comes to, a hard decision or not. It's, it gives us a notion of what kind of interconnections there are. And I think gives us all a better feel for what it is that's, that seems like it may be working.
Are those Afton people causing Valley Creek to have more chlorides in their load?
I don't know the specific answer to that.
Well, certainly the figure 10 is one that shows, concentrated impervious surface, is one of the impacts.
And I wonder, we need to focus on other aspects of this, or go with what, your recommendations are.
Yeah, those are much on it. I believe the recommendations are fairly consistent with the last few years. It's, tables 2 and 3. One is more of just a summary, table 1. So the tables 2 and 3 include more of the recommended monitoring. And it's fairly consistent with what's been done historically.
Okay. Do the managers have anything else? Because this seems fairly simple in approving the monitoring activities. This is in 2 and 3. Yes, sir. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just, you know, as far as developing a newsletter and some public
Yeah.
outreach to publicize this, what would be the angle? I mean, is.
Water quality.
I know it's water
What's
quality,
happening?
but what would we highlight would grab their attention to actually want to read this, and what is the message we would try to convey with that outreach, I guess is my question.
Don't eat mercury tainted fish. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, chloride is an obvious one.
Yeah.
President Rashawn, and Jeff Rock, we could work with Angie Hahn on kind of giving her a summary here, and she might have some advice on what angle, and maybe it's multiple angles depending on the location. Of the public that you're trying to reach.
Okay, I think that would be good.
That's very appealing. So she could provide us with some insights on how to bring this up, but certainly an upbeat message that we appear to have good news, you know, and the concern for items on the horizon, like chloride.
In the past, managers, we've worked with the city of Afton to kind of highlight some of the bacteria information to try to encourage folks to upgrade their septic systems. But that would be another possibility.
Right. Yeah, because we actually have the data showing that is human source bacteria too. So I think that would be helpful.
Fecal E. coli.
It may be useful to target the lake associations as well in this process, because I think they are,
Oh, yeah.
you know, pretty connected with the local people that can have impact, have interest, and, and so I think it'd be worthwhile in terms of having some focus in that area as well.
Manager Rashawn and other managers, in the past, we've, since there are a lot of volunteers that do the monitoring for the watershed district, we've given them a link to where the report is. I think and that's probably the least amount of effort, but I think we could also develop a little bit more brochure type information that summarizes it and tries to present it in language that they could understand as well.
Yeah, not just
that's
look at our website. Right. We're certainly put something on our website regarding this.
That's,
Yes, sir.
I mean, as people, they think of us and permitting and all the detention ponds, you know, and the extra cost of developments and that sort of thing, but those extra costs and all that, there's benefits to that, and maybe, because right now I think there's some stuff in the legislature where they're trying to reduce the cost of housing, you know, and they're looking at regulations being one of those things, and maybe here's a chance to toot our horn that, yeah, there's regulations and there's costs up front, but there's long-term benefits.
Yes.
It might be another opportunity to capitalize on.
So what we could do here is, could ask one of the managers to provide us with a motion. And then we could look at asking Barb to develop a cost estimate. And we've already brought some points that you gentlemen have recorded, so that You can share with us. I don't know exactly how we're gonna go about that. But give us an update on the ideas that could be implemented,
I'll make a motion,
please.
make a motion, to approve the proposed 2025 water quality monitoring activities listed in tables 2 and 3. And also direct FAR to develop a cost estimate to prepare a water quality newsletter or other public outreach materials to inform the public of the annual water quality monitoring.
I will second that motion. It's been moved and seconded.
Manager Armstrong, aye.
Manager Pereira, aye.
Manager Marshon, aye.
Manager Brock, aye.
Manager Geldman, aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Again, Josh, you're all over it. Nice effort. We like this. I like the picks. These trout are looking pretty healthy too, right? They're dead, of course, right? They're not, they're released and.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's beautiful.
Still out there.
I'm just saying, oh, wow,
You didn't,
I like that.
you have a fish fry.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk soon.
That sounds good.
Okay, thank you. They're alive, something's dead. They used to keep giant fish.
Yeah, I'll just eat it.
No, no
All
salt.
right, thanks.
No salt.
Yeah, you know.
Okay. Okay, we squared that away. Attorney,
I think there were changes.
Under managers, I think.
Oh, nothing from us today.
thank you. Miss Susanna can relax. Okay.
That's what I'm doing.
I'm not even gonna ask you where you are. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Wait, we're gonna go to managers here soon. Mr. Brower, your report, please.
As I mentioned, manager, they did include a report in the packet. I have some updates from this report when,
Okay.
since it's been issued. Shilton South, the developer had their contractor out doing repairs along the Sunfish Lake area. There had been some erosion on the slopes and some silt fence that happens in winter, right? Winter can knock down silt fence and
Sure.
things move. So they're out there this week taking care of those issues. The same at Easton Village, the erosion control missing along the pond has been reinstalled. Also Bridgewater Bank has got a pre-con up next week. That's one we thought was gonna happen this winter and then they pushed it off. So we'll have a meeting on Monday for that.
Okay,
Project Wrangler, which is the second Amazon building, is up and running. They started excavation on Monday. And so erosion controls in place. It's underway, no issues to report. There's quite a bit going on actually in that Woodbury corridor right now. We've got the Karen Drive Apartments, we've got a Goddard School, we've got the car wash. Just quite a grouping of projects going on, but so far so good. We've got a meeting coming up with the owners of that Park Place condo, their kind of garage condo is up on the Black Diamond site. I'm walking with the city in that to kind of go through a punch list of items that they need to address. That's going to happen in the next week. So everything over there's, going pretty well. Silver Lake Outlet, not really running that strong, but just strong enough to have to keep it cleaned out because we get a lot of leaf and weed debris in there, but no issues to report over there.
Nice.
Other than that, it's things are just up and running here with new projects.
Very good, sir. And
Question?
Yes,
yes, sir.
Looks like I was by the 3M fencing project today. It looked like there was quite a bit of activity going on there.
Okay,
There
I'll
were a
have,
variety of people out as well as looked like, I don't know if the backhoe was part of the project or not.
the last time I was out there, a lot of things were staged on the east side. Is that where you saw?
Yeah, we're on the east
Okay,
side, yeah.
I'll have to take a look, because they really had the other fencing installed in the west and the north side looked like that had already been done. And I know there were some discussions, Engineer Hanson mentioned, with the DNR and some discussion about the fence and so forth. So, I'll have to get over there and take a look at it. Thank you.
So are they still not done with tree removal at the like elementary site?
They're pretty much, there might be some materials that they still have to remove, but they're pretty much done with cutting and grubbing. Well, you can see they're moving quite a bit of dirt.
Yeah.
That whole site is like a sand pit. There's so much sand under there, you can't believe it. So they're moving dirt for the building pad in the parking lot. The tree work is pretty much done. So if you look to the north, there's a tree line. They're done removing anything along the north property line.
Okay.
So to see nothing there, there was some materials kind of mid to the west side. I think they were still grinding out because there were stumps and things in there. But otherwise, they're pretty much done with the tree removal. I mean, the whole site was trees. It was, they removed
Cut down a forest.
80 truckloads of wood chips, of the big semi loads of chips went on there.
You're kidding.
No.
How many acres is that site? Looks
John,
massive.
you know what, or Josh, you know, is that, I don't remember, 25 acre? More than that.
And,
Yes, a little more.
and we have.
It was all trees. It was all trees planted probably in the 80s, maybe, or something like that. Looked like they were planted in rows, probably used a DNR tree planter and they were all pretty mature. So, yeah. They get a lot of attention when that happened.
Any word, have you, fellas, heard any word about, road upgrades or anything? Because it's gotta come.
On 10th,
Where about?
Right there.
on 10th, is it, President Marshall, are you?
Yeah,
is that about
10th.
10th? Because that's the.
South and Lake Elmo Avenue, right?
Yeah,
So the main entrance will be on 10th, not on Lake Elmo Avenue. It's
Correct.
Okay.
yeah, correct.
Oh, boy.
They have a temporary construction entrance right on the corner now,
Okay.
off of 10th, but the main entrance will be down about halfway down on the site going west.
President Marshall, I misunderstood your question, but yes, Washington County is working on plans for that and
Yeah.
that will be coming very soon. They
Because
are
right-
fast tracking that project.
Yep,
We have-
right now, because of the stop signs and everything, and sometimes I travel that road in the morning, there is rush hour traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
President, my shop managers, it's 47.6 acres.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Way weird.
And they haven't started Oakland, there's the Oakland Middle School project as well that the managers approved a permit on earlier this year. They haven't started, but I think we'll see something in the next month on that. They've got 3 schools going on right now. Wayport, Lake Elmo, and then renovations at Oakland.
Are they putting ball fields and stuff in there? What do they need 47 acres for a elementary school for? Just out of
I
curiosity.
think it's gonna be a big school. I don't know, actually.
A lot of it isn't usable because it's floodplain but they are building some ball fields.
So down on the west end, John, that's the floodplain down on the lower.
Yeah,
There's also,
Closest to 10th Street on the west side.
Right.
Southwest, but there's also floodplain on the north side. It's
On the
several
adjoining-
landing basins within the site.
yeah, the adjoining neighbor's property, right? Who's been filling that in over time? I think it was an old gravel pit or something and they've been filling it in, so, yeah.
oh, yeah. Not far from the range.
No, it's pretty close.
There might be some implications in the future. I don't know.
You don't shoot in that direction, do you?
The kiddies are gonna be sitting in class listening to gunfire for recreational, vote. So that might be a concern.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I don't shoot in that direction. Okay. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for your report. Okay, managers. The Minnesota Water, we'll talk about the Minnesota Watershed special meeting first. Don and John.
Yeah, Don and I attended, the meeting. And the reason was primarily, changes to the bylaws regarding, resolutions and the timing and when those are submitted and reviewed and acted on and that sort of thing. I don't know how much detail you would want, but that, it's basically going to move the calendar up on that process.
Yeah.
And make it more workable.
Your report.
So that's, I don't know, Don, if you had anything else on that?
Well,
I don't think so. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, they had their quorum. They had maybe just one or two that didn't show up, so it went fine.
And then after the special meeting, then we had a little educational event. We had, council there and kind of reviewed the open meeting laws, so bit more, and also on Data Privacy Act issues. And one thing I did pick up, if I heard him right, is I heard him at the meeting in December, and I thought he said that any committee meetings, even if you don't have a quorum, would need to be noticed. And what I heard him say the other last week was if it's a standing committee, that needs to be noticed. But if it's an ad hoc committee, which is kind of like, John, what you and Suzanne and I and
Right.
Ed getting together. What, if I heard him correctly, an ad hoc committee meeting like that would not need to be noticed. And I might be wrong, but that's what I heard. And so I don't know, Don, if you heard that the same way or.
I don't know if I did, but I thought he had ad hoc listed on a slide that required a quorum as well. But I mean, I think he was pulling language right out of statute, so
Yeah,
it should be easy for us to back check that.
might be something for council.
I can hop in. I can hop in real quick. I mean, generally speaking, if there's a group of managers that are getting together to make decisions or have discussions that either will be shared with the public or that the public should be privy to, or at least the opportunity to, then it should be noticed and the public should be able to attend. So the standing committees would make perfect sense to me. The ad hoc committees, I mean, frankly, I don't really see the harm in posting and letting people know. I don't really know who's going to show up, but really it's all government action should be open and transparent, generally speaking. But we can just double check to give a confirmation at the next meeting to further clarify what was shared at that meeting.
Very good. Thank you, Susanna. That offers some clarification. So if we're to do something like that, what do we have to have, like a 3 to 5 day notice posting or whatever?
Yeah, it's just a 3-day notice, so and then it gets posted at Baytown. So right where I posted the manager Prera would be attending remotely. So it needs to be the bulletin board at the official office of the municipal entity. So for Valley Branch, that's Baytown's bulletin board.
Okay. Simple enough. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for the information, gentlemen. let's move on to our next one. Let's talk about the, what Mr. BJ Bonin wanted to bring up. Go ahead, John, please.
Sure. Mr. President, managers, as you know, there are these grants with the state for, there's $20 million with a PFAS settlement between the state and 3M, and they're using the grants for natural resource enhancements or recreational activities. BJ Bowman is a former DNR employee, and he's working with Freshwater Society. And he is planning to submit a grant application to monitor the water quality of the springs coming into Valley Creek. And he's asking for a letter of support from Valley Branch Watershed District. The grants, as you recall, as I said, they're, in my opinion, they really seem like they're intended for recreational projects or restoration of habitat projects. This is more of a monitoring type project, and would just be of the water, not of the fish. So I think it's a little bit of a stretch for it to meet that criteria, but I told them that I would bring it to the managers for managers to discuss and determine whether Valley Branch would like to submit a letter of support on that application.
I have a question. The concern with the grant. Don't we have a lot of stuff, a lot of items on the fire right now?
President Rashan, at the last meeting, you directed Bar to submit 7
I think so.
letters.
Oh,
of
that's
intent.
all?
Yes.
I'm kidding. Yeah, so the concern is this something that, well, all they're looking for is a letter of support.
Right. It doesn't obligate the Watershed District to any financial commitment.
How do you gentlemen feel about this one?
I mean, it sounded like he was just hoping we could help facilitate access to some springs or something, and it sounded like a big deal.
Don?
Yeah, I think I probably agree with John. That I think that's where I'm at as well.
So we should provide a letter of support?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I mean, it seems like he's looking at something that maybe hasn't been looked at closely.
Okay. What do you think, Rick?
I don't see that. I think that the project itself is worthwhile, and that's something that we're concerned about. I'm not sure how close of a fit it is to the grants that are being given, but I'm not sure that's our role to make that decision for them. So I guess I'd be inclined to say let's provide some support to that, or a letter of support, and let PCA or whoever it is that make the decision decide it.
So how do we go about this? You draft something and we look at it, or shall we just?
Mr. President, if you'd like a letter of support prepared, I suggest that you just direct me to prepare one. They're due next Friday.
Whoa. Yeah. Everybody seems to be in agreement with this. And we're just directing John, so I suppose, by all means, please make that happen.
Thank you.
And you, sir. Okay. All right, that's settled. Here, our next item is this direct Gallowitz and Olson, where Tori comes in, to hire an appraiser to determine the value of these 3 properties that we may be purchasing because of the flood concern. And here we are taking care of this business with all that money we have. So it seems simple enough. We don't need to make a motion for this, do we? No? Okay. Then I would like to direct, Ken Galloway Sullivan to hire an appraiser to determine the values of those three properties, please.
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
Yes, sir.
glad to see that's happening.
Yep.
You know, that's encouraging.
Yep.
These are property owners that we've contacted previously too, right?
Mr. President Managers, these are all along Legion Pond.
Oh, yeah.
And I did receive an email late this afternoon from the landowner, homeowner at Eden Park Pond, who's also interested in it, but wanted a little bit more discussion before jumping into the appraisal process.
Did you by chance, have you by chance been there?
No,
It seems like the backyards are below the level of the water. And it's just a matter of time before something terrible happens.
A related issue,
Yes, sir.
next fall, we need to, I guess, reconcile how we've handled the bonds that we've issued. And I was not particularly happy with the attorneys that had worked on it in the past. And I think that it might be worthwhile doing a search for another attorney that, that could do the task of giving us clear direction in terms of what it is our responsibilities are, and how we go about moving forward, at the end of this, at this 5-year mark. And, it just seems like we might do better financially, if we're not kind of going back and forth. It felt like there was a lot of, questioning about what it is that we need to do. And I'd rather not be paying attorneys very high rates and coming up with that kind of result. So if we can, do a search of some sort and look around maybe and see if there's other ways to handle it.
Mr. President Manager, so there's a bond council, it's called bond council for these bonds. And the big takeaway that Treasurer Gelman and Attorney Kirschner and I had, I think, was you want to spend the money by the deadline, which is November 8th or early November of this year. If you spend the money, if you spend your bond money by that time, 100% within the 5 years, then you're pretty good. If you don't spend the money, then it gets a lot more complicated. So I think it's great that we have some interested parties to help you spend your money.
Okay.
Definitely, but it's still not clear to me as to whether or not, we missed the 3-year point and whether that has any impact or we've got any obligations there or what the situation is there.
Because the takeaway basically that I got was don't ask questions and
Just wait till 5 years. Deal with it. Yeah, and that's the approach we took.
I think that might have been the impression that Lauren received as well from that conversation.
Okay. So, Rick, I'm all for that. What can we do? Who, do we direct Bar to help us find somebody or who helps us on this one? Or is it the
President
attorney?
Portion, I think we found it's Dorsey Whitney, who's the attorney, and I think that was a recommendation from George at Northland Securities who helped.
I remember the gentleman, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna approach them again and.
I'm guessing Gallowitz Olson might have some suggestions as well.
We could.
Well-
Go ahead, Susanna.
What I wanted to say is before looking for new counsel, you just want to make sure that you're not locked into a contract with them. I'm not really sure what that contract says, so we'd have to dig that up. And then honestly, we don't really deal with bond counsel. Tori might know of someone, I don't. But we could certainly put out feelers and see if there's any recommendations out there for bond counsel.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, my main reason for bringing it up now is that let's be prepared,
Yeah.
if we get into a situation and towards the end and we've still got money that we have not spent, then we do need to look at what the situation is and to have, know what our options are at that point. I think it'd be useful.
The sooner the better, I assume. Right. Yes, sir.
Curious, would there be somebody in Washington County that deals with bonds that could have a recommendation for us?
Oh, yeah,
I have no idea, but
that would be cost free to have them look into that, right?
Dorsey and Whitney's one of the biggest law firms in the state, so I mean, they probably do a lot of that stuff, but there are definitely other law firms out there. I don't know specific to Washington County, but maybe someone would. Might be all right.
Yeah, from my amateur perspective, it didn't seem like they knew the answers. There was a lot of, it seemed like research that needed to be done and yeah, it just didn't seem to come across clearly. Maybe that's because I don't understand the process. Well, could be, but yeah.
If I can, one other thing that might be possible is to actually reach out to Dorsey and say, hey, did we actually have an attorney who practices in this area very much? Because as Bill said, they're a huge firm. And it is possible that there's someone in their firm who knows the level of detail of these questions, and that wasn't the attorney that you were speaking with.
That's an excellent suggestion.
So who contacts them so we get the ball rolling on this? Does council or?
We can if you'd like us to.
That. I guess I'm more inclined to just know what our options are right now.
Seems like the first step is to review the contract, to see if there is a
Yeah,
contract that
yeah.
requires you to.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a little bit of time, but I want to be prepared for, whatever contingencies, happen down the road here.
Okay. So. John's our point man on this.
Pardon?
Is he gonna contact somebody or?
I will contact Attorney Torseth to see if they have a copy of any contract
Okay,
with Dorsey, and if not, I'll look through our files to see if we might have one.
how about contacting George? Is he?
That would be the third step, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
and Washington County maybe for legal advice or?
Yes, I think, after we determine what if there are some requirements to continue with Dorsey, then you can determine if there aren't any requirements, what are some options, whether that's working with Washington County directly, or if they have a law firm that they work with, or if other people know the law firm.
Or if there's somebody else at Dorsey,
Yes,
I think that's a reasonable option too.
I think we were dealing with a vice president, so I would have thought that she would have.
Yeah. Okay, the sooner the better.
I'll look into it next week.
Okay, thank you, sir. You hear that, Susanna?
I did.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Are you in Florida?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We covered the special meeting, we covered these two items, and you gentlemen are gonna be available for the April 10th and April 14th meetings.
wrote that in April 24th.
Well, I'm sorry. Yes, I can see. All right. Yes, thank you. April 10th and April 24th. I will more than likely be at the April 10th meeting, and I will try to stay awake. And for sure, in a much better mood on the April 24th meeting. Okay. Does anybody have anything else? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Then moved and seconded.
Manager Armstrong, aye.
Manager Pereira, aye.
Manager Marshon, aye.
Andrew Brock, aye.
Manager Geldman, aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very
Good night,
much.
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Night.